Okay, we're live. So Cynthia and I are back again this week to go over our accountability call highlights. And this week was a little bit light on the participation, but we still had about 16 people join us. I know Wednesday was a little bit of a prep day for Thanksgiving, but we still had a great conversation. I think Flavio started us out talking about two properties that he's getting ready. We're trying to get ready for rent. One of them was closer than the other. I think he said it just needed a bathroom and some flooring. The other one, he was having issues with the electrical because the inspector was asking him to do some, I think they're crazy things, but he'll make it through it. So he was trying to concentrate on the one that was closest. And so that he could get that rented and get some more income coming in, because he said money is getting a little bit tight.
So when the inspectors come, I know they have to go through some type of a licensing program so that they know what they're looking at. Is that true? And is it the same for every state?
No, it's different depending where you live, or where the property's at. And that's one thing that we've talked about in the past, because different cities, different counties, they have different rules. I know there's a basically like an international building code and things like that, but and the fees are different because like I mentioned a few months ago, we had a project going in Santa Cruz, which was in the city of Santa Cruz, and the permits were, like $1,500. But then we did the same, almost the exact same thing to another house in another town, and the fees there were $8,000. So it just depends where you're at. And I don't know what kind of people the inspectors are.
So there's no guidelines or anything, or is it just, is it, are the prices set by the county? Are the prices set by the state? Or do we know?
That's one thing that we haven't been able to figure out, because there is no set cost. It's not the same across the board. And
Hmm.
even some of the inspectors have, some have more experience than others. Some were actually builders, which helps a lot because they know what it takes to do some of these projects that we do. And some, maybe they come right out of school or college or whatever, and they have never built a thing in their life. So they don't really know what it takes to do it. So it's an area that really needs some improvement and has needed improvement for a long, long time. We've had our remodeling business for over 30 years, and nothing has really improved, I don't think. From there, we were talking about some bathroom projects. I know one of our friends in the community is getting ready to do a bathroom, so we let him know that if he has any questions on the process, that we're always available to him. But we were talking about specifically in the beginning about waterproofing showers and things like that, and different types of shower pans, different waterproofing systems, because today there are a lot more um, different types of waterproofing systems available. Back in the day, it was basically just hot mopping with tar and paper, and then doing mortar bed installations. And we very rarely see that anymore these days.
So easier to do now?
Yes, a lot easier to do now. And a lot of homeowners can do it themselves as well.
So
Back in the day,
what's the driving force between knowing which type of system to use? Does it matter with the tile or is it just preference?
yeah, it's just a matter of preference. I think a lot of nowadays, there's a lot of products that are similar to sheetrock in, um, they have gypsum cores like sheetrock does, but they have waterproof membranes already attached to them on the wet side. So you can just screw those to your studs, and once you seal the joints, you're ready to tile. Some of them, like Schluter, has a membrane that you actually glue. You can glue over sheetrock, actually. Some people do that. I wouldn't recommend that, but I will always use like Hardy Backer, and then I'll glue Schluter over that. And that's a really nice waterproofing system. And they make shower pans that go with it. So if you glue in a Schluter shower pan, it's already pre-sloped, so you don't have to worry about sloping it towards the drain or anything like that, as long as your subfloor is fairly level.
So I know before, because you'd have the layers of everything. So now is it easier to make it so that it sits flush than it did before, or is it harder because now you have to, I don't know. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think now, well, you still want to make sure that your studs are all flush with each other, because you can still get a wavy wall even if you're using, Hardy Backer or Go Board or Dent Shield. Those are all products that come in. They come in 3x5 sheets, 3 foot by 5 foot, basically, or they come in a 4x8 sheet for like large floors and things like that you can use, or large showers.
And
And
all the
that's it.
same thickness?
Yeah, they're all 1/2 inch thick. Yeah. So those have made it a lot easier, at least for me anyway. Some guys are old school. They still like to do mortar beds, but that takes a lot of practice, especially when you're doing walls. And so, like you said, it's just a matter of preference. A little bit after that, the conversation turned to sewer scopes.
Hmm.
We had been talking about a video that we watched with Graham Stephan, and how he's, selling all his rental properties and getting out of the business. But he was talking about one of the issues he had was a sewer scope. I think he was planning on adding some apartments to a property that he already owned, and in doing so, the inspection, they found an issue with the sewer lateral, which is from the building to the street. And that was the beginning of his headaches. He was talking about how the inspection and the permit um, application process was a big headache. So, but then also, he's been in the business, or he had a 10-year run of good luck with his rental property. So I thought that was pretty good, because most of us don't. Most of us jump right into the first 5 years sucking. So I think he didn't really have any room to complain.
So why is he getting out? Because now things are going downhill, or that's
Yeah,
it?
because apparently because of all the challenges that he is running into right now. And he doesn't really need the money. He doesn't even need rentals. He makes
Hmm.
all of his money from YouTube. So, I mean, nowadays that's where he makes all his money. But I do have to say that when we first started out again in 2019, he was an inspiration for me. I watched a lot of his content. We also watched Rose Hahn, who was talking a lot about retirement accounts and how to start building those up for retirement. But I thought it was too late for me to start with retirement accounts, because you do need time to add to those and let them build on their own. And then we also used to watch Meet Kevin, and Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan had a lot of good real estate content in the beginning, but they did pivot once they, I guess, basically got famous on YouTube. Then they kind of pivoted away from real estate and started doing some other things. I think Meet Kevin was even considering running for governor or something like that. So, but I do have to thank them, because they did help us get started again. One of our other friends in the group, Kevin, who lives in San Francisco, but has an investment property in San Diego that just came up online for rent. Um, he said he had a good prospect, but that tenant was asking, because I think he put up a fence across part of the lot, and they were wondering if he was going to be building another rental on that side of the property. And I think their concern was that they had small children and safety issues and things like that. So he was trying to come up with a way to, I guess, break it to them gently that he is considering building more on the property, but nothing nothing was ready to go. He still had to go through the planning and permitting and drawing process for that other, I guess it would be like an ADU. But I think that's a concern for a lot of people, right? Even if they're buying in a planned community, because a lot of times the community, they start selling the homes as soon as some of them are finished, but they still have a lot more to build. And a lot of people don't like to live around that.
Can we backtrack for a quick second?
Sure.
So, do you think when did sewer scopes become a thing? Because I know when we were in Fremont, they didn't use a sewer scope to see where the problem was. We had to dig, remember? So, when did sewer scopes become a thing? And is it across the board that everybody does it, or do they just hope for the best and keep going?
Yeah, I don't think, well, when we started reinvesting in 2020, I didn't hear too much about sewer scopes, and I can't remember where I did hear it, but once we realized that it could be an issue, and so when you're looking at buying a property and you're getting your property inspection, a sewer scope is separate from the regular home inspection.
Mhm.
Usually costs, 250 to 350 for them to do a sewer scope on in most cases. But we think it's well worth it because it could cost a lot if the sewer does need to be replaced. And the sewer scope is, again, the sewer lateral, which is from the house to the street,
Mhm.
which the homeowners or the landlord is responsible for. So we've that's always one of the first things I tell people to make sure they have done during their inspection period. And some companies are able to do a sewer scope within that company. Some don't do sewer scopes, so you have to get a separate plumbing company to do that. But either way, I think the cost is well worth it to make sure that it's in good shape. And something can always happen, after you buy it, but at least if it's in good shape when you do buy it, you have a chance for reserves to build up and things like that. Some cities that we invest in, St. Louis, for example, part of your taxes go towards a program that helps property owners if they do come up with a sewer issue down the road. And there's an application process, um, but they will pay for work that has to be done on the sewer lateral because they take it out of everybody's taxes every year.
That seems mm, I don't want to say nice, but that seems like a good move, especially I think in the Midwest where we have not only the dirt and the all that other stuff, you also have the weight of the snow that's going to be sitting there for a while. So that, especially with some of the old houses, people think that the earth is going to compact and not cause any problems, but in reality, it really does. Mr. Deconstructing Dreams is dealing with the sewer issue right now. Last week, his tenant called saying there was a backup. He had the service come out and they found with the camera the pipe is failing and letting rocks fall in. He's got a number for a guy that does a linear system to repair. You want to explain what a linear system is, please?
I think he means a liner.
Mm,
So, yeah, so sometimes if you most of the time the line from the house to the street is 4 inch in inner diameter, and now they have a system where they can actually, it's a liner, it's I forget what it's made out of, but they pull the liner through the line, and that gives you a nice clean inner surface so that everything moves well and doesn't clog. If rocks are falling in the line, I don't know if that liner can resist the pressure of the rocks. So that's something to consider. If rocks are falling in the hole, that weight might collapse the liner as well. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with and what they recommend that he do. I know there are some procedures where they will actually um, they run a cable up your existing sewer line and attach this big triangular shaped head on it, and then they attach a new plastic line to that. So when they pull the wedge through the existing line, it breaks it as it pulls it through, but it's also pulling the new line with it. And then they just connect it at both ends. So that's really cool. I don't know anyone who has done that yet, but I have seen it on TV. And in fact, on this old house, they've done it a couple of times.
My apologies, it was liner, not linear. And Jason had asked a question I was going to ask next. How long do they say that they last? Is it, or do we even know how long those liners last? And how, so is it something that's flexible? Because, okay, so I'm envisioning this pipe that's going through underground, and if it's cracked or there's dirt and rocks coming through, then that liner that's coming through has to be pretty strong to keep that from collapsing in. So how sturdy is that?
Yeah, I think it is still fairly flexible. It's not rigid, and,
So
and
then
it's
how do
almost
they
like it's
go ahead? I'm
almost
sorry.
like if like if you're turning your sock inside out, as you're pulling your sock, it's kind of unrolling. So it's
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing, and then it unrolls all the way to the end, and then it's got a clean interior. But like I said, I don't know. We'll have to do some research on that and see, because in some way I was thinking there was one that actually once they pulled it through and it kind of unrolled itself, that it actually got hard.
Oh,
So I'm not sure, but we'll look into that. I've never had any experience with that.
oh, okay. So that's what I was thinking if it got um became solid, because then that would make sense. Because if it's not solid and it's flexible, then it really doesn't help the problem because things are going to make it fall into itself and then you still have the same problem again. So maybe that was deconstructing dreams. Maybe when he talks to his guy on Monday, he can give us an update on how that all works.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll probably put the information in school. He doesn't usually make it to our Wednesday call, but he's in Reno, Nevada. He's doing STRs and he's doing an amazing job. He's getting one ready to come online pretty soon, we hope. I think he was getting drywall done. He's doing some really fancy stuff in there, so we can't wait to see the pictures. Let's see. And then the discussion on Wednesday actually turned to bidets. It sounds like it was
Gross,
plumbing.
gross, gross, gross.
I would never put one in a rental property. Um, but some people like to use them. And they were they were wondering why we wouldn't put one in a rental property. And I think the first thought when we discussed this months ago, we talked about it and we just thought, if the tenant has kids, they're going to be playing with it and making a mess in the bathroom, probably flooding the bathroom before their parents caught on. So I will never have one in a rental property, and I know we'll probably never have one in our primary residence either.
Yeah, no, that's gross. That's like urinals. Gross. No.
I think um, so. We had a little bit of fun with that discussion, and then someone asked if any of the landlords on the call ever give their tenants gifts, ever send their tenants like Christmas gifts. And I know we haven't yet. I think I probably would if we came across a tenant that we knew really cared about the property and took care of it. But most of our tenants aren't like that. So I guess none of them have earned that from us. I know some people will send like a food gift card or things like that. And we might have done it once or twice in our Milwaukee duplex. And then those tenants turned out to be tenants that we had to get out anyway. So think we might as well just save the money for now until somebody really shines.
I know we haven't for any tenants, but I think we did for our PM who's like outstanding. I think that's a good policy just to be able to do that because you're really, I mean, I know it's their job and I know it's their job and they get paid. I understand that. I understand that they get paid very well. But the gift is a thank you. And it doesn't have to be at Christmas. It could be at any time. Just say, hey, thank you for doing such a good job and staying on top of things. That goes a long way um, in that relationship with your PM. Yeah, I don't know if I would do it with any. Um, Maybe if we were um, doing our own PM stuff, then that might be an idea. But I think not if we don't know who they are. I think yeah, I don't think so. I know that somewhere somebody, and this is something I remember from way back when you started this, that somebody was making sure that every tenant had like a welcome gift basket in there when they first rented, which I thought was kind of nice. Maybe gets the rental off on a good foot, So even just like a little welcoming basket or whatever. Um, and then yeah, I thought that would be pretty good because then at least the tenant knows that you know who they are. It could be, yeah, they know who you are. You're not just somebody sending your check every month. So that's a thought later in the future, maybe.
Yeah, I think it seems to lend itself more to maybe people who self-manage because they have a personal, I mean, at least they see their tenants and know them. But when you have a property manager, I know it's still, I don't know, if the gift would come from us, but it would be delivered through the property management company. So would they think it's the PM sending it or the
I
landlord
would,
sending it?
yeah, I would think they would think it was the PM. Yeah. So if we were handling, that part, then that's different. But yeah, I think they would think it was from the PM. And it really doesn't matter who they think it's from, just that they feel appreciated. And I guess that's why I would rather, if we ever did it, would rather do it as a welcoming, welcome to your new home. If there's any issues, blah, blah, blah. And it could be from us and the PMs.
Yeah.
But
So
I think it's a good sorry, I think it's a good relationship building. Jason says he does a welcome basket, which is really interesting. Strainers, one roll of toilet paper, sponge, dish soap. That's pretty, yeah. See, stuff like that, that when you first move in and you have to unpack stuff, you don't know where things are. So basic things like that go a long way. I think someone um, appreciate it and some would just kind of like throw it by wayside, which is okay because even if it's one person, it's better than not.
yeah, I like that idea with Jason, but Jason does self-manage also, so he knows his tenants.
Yeah, true.
But
Okay.
it could always be a nice gesture, and you can see if if you notice any difference. I don't know how you would notice a difference, but like you said, if the tenants actually appreciate it or
Yeah,
not.
I don't think it's so much them us knowing whether they appreciate it or not. I think it's kind of that human side, that giving and not having to have anybody turn around and say thank you. It's just
Mhm.
that you're giving it from your heart. Here's something we thought you could use because moving is such a hassle and sometimes we don't know where everything is. This is something to help you get going. Yeah, because I think about when we moved, yeah, dish soap, sponge, dish towel, toilet paper, that was all something we had to, find and, thankfully I put it all in separate boxes, but it was still a hassle. But
Mhm.
sometimes, especially if you're a single parent and you have kids and you're trying to figure out where everything is because you're the only one probably who is packing stuff, or if you're having the kids help you, they're probably putting it in any box. So I think something maybe we should think about later on.
I agree. Uh, we ended the night with Nicole. She's in Utah and she has rentals outside of where she lives, but she was asking because she had an applicant and they had three emotional support, and I think they were dogs in her case.
Really?
Um, so she was wondering if that was a good move or not, because you can't turn them away. Apparently, you cannot charge extra like pet rent or anything like that. That may be different from market to market. Some some folks had suggested if she was going to accept that tenant, that maybe she do more frequent inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And some people said don't do it.
I
Um,
I wonder how you put that in your leasing agreement then, because you can't discriminate. Yeah, I wonder how you do that because if you put in that, I wonder if you have to have a special clause that says if it's a emotional whatever animal that I don't know because you can't discriminate. So you can't say you can't specify, I guess, if it's an emotional dog, emotional support dog, but somewhere in there you have to be able to protect yourself. So maybe you would just make it as a general if there's pets involved, or I guess you'd have to say any type of animal involved that you would be doing a every 6 month or every 8 month inspection, something of that sort. So it's a standard. But I think that's something to definitely talk to an attorney about because that's a little touchy on how you're going to do that.
yeah, and I mean, I was just thinking that if somebody needs an animal to support them emotionally, they're off their rocker anyway. So I wouldn't take them. That's just me.
Okay, so oh my goodness. I knew you were going to go there. But that's not true. That's not true because, well, it's not true because sometimes the emotional support is just the fact that they're lonely because they need that contact. And maybe they're not, maybe they're an introvert and they don't like to go hang out with strangers and what have you. So that extra, companionship. So they put it under emotional support. I don't think it necessarily means that people who have emotional support animals are off their rocker. I just think sometimes they just need those extra hugs and love.
You didn't change my mind. If they need a dog, there's something wrong with them.
uh,
So yeah. So anyway, that's all that was on the meeting that night. But we did have some random thoughts to talk about. I think.
okay, I'm
Um,
sorry. Just really quick because John Litz just said that the liner is flexible to begin with, but turns harder after a very short time. So that's good. And John, if you could let us know in follow up if they know how long they should have an idea about how long that's going to last. That would be good information to know. Thank you. And um, so Flavio, I think he's causing trouble. He says, I have an emotional dog, not an emotional support dog, just an emotional dog.
yeah, that's more like it.
Uh,
I think, Flavio, if you could tell us what kind of a dog you have, if you really have a dog. And Flavio is supposed to be working right now, so he shouldn't
ooh,
be messing around in the chat. Um,
Flavio.
okay, getting over to the random thoughts. I think,
Oh my goodness.
let's see. We were, well, you and I have had conversations about wanting to purchase more properties in the future, right? And even though we're at retirement age, hopefully you'll be retiring after May, and our income is going to change a little bit, that we're trying to learn different ways to be able to still purchase properties, um, over the next few years. And I think DSCR loans are probably the obvious choice, but I also want to learn more about seller financing. And I was telling some of the group the other day about um, Mel. She was on Dion's channel a while back, but she's all about seller financing and creative financing. And one of the things I liked that she was talking about was, and I didn't really think about it, but when you do seller financing and you work with the owner of a property, obviously they're the ones who are going to be getting the interest, because they will actually be the bank, not Wells Fargo or B of A or somebody like that. And how it translates into keeping the money in a particular community. And once I thought about that, I really liked that concept. But it seems like there's a lot to learn about seller financing and how to do it properly, but also finding sellers who are educated enough to realize it could help them as well as helping you. Because a lot of them seem to think it's a scam, or if they have an agent, they're working with an agent. A lot of agents don't even know, how to do that properly, or that it is a benefit. It can be a benefit to the buyer and the seller. So I think that's something that I'm going to be tackling next.
Yeah, that's always a little confusing for me because I would think if I was the seller, I mean, yeah, you tell them, you could pay rent and stay in your own house and all those good things that could happen. But I always think about, yeah, how do you know it's not a scam? How do you know that these people are legit and that they're not just going to take your house and then kick you out? I mean, and I know you sign paperwork and all that. And again, how do you know that's legit? Because that's a big risk. I mean, just yeah, that's a big risk.
Yeah. That kind of ties into my next random thought, which was I heard somebody talking about how comfort is the silent killer of momentum. And that can be very true. And I actually caught myself slipping this week into that kind of thought process, because now that all of our properties are full and we should be able to take a breather, that's what it means, right? That's the killer of momentum means, like, since you're comfortable, you don't really have any pressure to keep on moving forward or things like that. Let me do this for 1 second.
We do have Lynn
So
I'm sorry, who made a great comment that she says that everything is drawn by an attorney recorded by the county, which makes sense. But so does that mean all of the agreements, which I would imagine it is, everything you agree upon goes in there? And then where is that? Well, okay, now that makes sense. Now I'm
yeah,
taking it out.
so
Yeah.
she's talking about the seller financing. So I know
Yes.
everything is
Uh-huh.
legal. I know everything is legal, but when you're trying to explain that to a seller, they
Right.
don't they don't always understand that or know that. So that's being the challenging part. And I'm glad Lynn's here,
Me
because I
too.
think she's one of the she's she's one of the most knowledgeable people we've run across in the group. And I look forward to learning a lot more from her, because she's done a lot of good things. um, she has some properties in Gary. She lives down south near LA, and she just finished her ADU there on her property. So I'm glad that we've connected with her. Um, and obviously, Lynn, if you have more to say about that, please just throw it in the chat. I'm going to keep going with that thought I was talking about. So we were talking about comfort killing momentum. Once you get comfortable, you can lose momentum. But even though I was feeling more comfortable now that all of our properties are rented, I don't think I should take my foot off the gas. I should be preparing for the next steps, which for us are finding help practicing seller financing and learning as much about that as we can so that when we talk to a seller, we can speak to them in an educated fashion and not sound like, I guess, a newbie or somebody that doesn't really know what they're talking about. I think that could go a long way. And even if we get the chance to speak to an agent representing somebody, letting them know right off the bat that we're not trying to cut them out of the deal so that they don't get their commission. Obviously, we want them to make their money as well. And then the other thing that we'll be doing is trying to get our file built out with the lender that we're working with. That way, when opportunities arise, we'll be ready to jump on them.
So, okay, so let's stay on this for a second. So you know how at the beginning when we were starting this part of our investment journey, and I used to talk about how everybody gets so excited when they're looking for property and they're evaluating it and they're doing all this stuff and everybody's so active. And then as soon as they run out of money or something else happens, then it's like they kind of go through an emotional roller coaster because they've come from that high of the buying and all of that stuff, the acquiring, um, and they hit that lull and they become complacent and just let things go, which I think sometimes I don't think it's really being complacent because I think that's really the stabilization part. It's how um it's one of the processes, and usually people go through stabilization one property at a time. So usually people will buy a property, do their thing, get it going, they get starts get going, and then they get another property. So they really don't get off that high for a while. Unfortunately, we kind of went a little crazy there, which is fine. But I I think that part of being in that lull is the part that no one talks about, and people aren't active in groups and stuff because they're like, okay, what is it that I have that I can contribute? I'm not doing anything. But in reality, you're becoming a model for what stabilization looks like. And a while back, I had asked for a list of what does it mean when you're stabilizing? What kinds of things should you be looking at? And almost like a step by from the time you um, start looking at properties to purchasing to the whole thing, because new people have no clue. I had no clue, and there's a lot of things I still have no clue about. But it's almost like no one tells you about this process. There has been nothing. No one says this is what you're going to go through, and it's that emotional part that no one talks about
Well,
because then you don't feel like you're doing anything. It's like, okay, so why do I want to listen to these guys? I don't care. I don't have any money to buy anything, so I have other things to do.
yeah. And I think the longer that we're in the business, the more people we're around, right? Building a network and um, finding all these great people that are joining us today that have done things like 1031 exchanges. And I
Hmm.
mean, I've said
Michelle.
before, like yeah,
Yeah.
Michelle, but we're not ready to do that. But we know someone who did it. So when it is time, we can ask for their help and see who they used or how it went for them and things like that. And I think like Cody, has always offered to uh, chat with us more about seller financing. He's done some really cool things recently, and his latest deal is amazing. We'll have to get him on to talk about that because he he was going to pass on it, and then some things changed, and they figured out a way to make it work for him and the seller. So I think that was really cool. Um, and Lynn mentioned AI. We'll be chatting about AI here in a couple of minutes, but
Mm,
um, I think when you're talking about, well, I think we're lucky where social media and technology are today because, like you said, if you run out of money, you used to think that was just it, right? But
right.
there's so much knowledge out there, so many videos to get you started, get your wheels turning, and start to learn about different ways to do it. Um, Different things like using HELOCs or private money and different things like that. And just being in the community, we've run across people who are private lenders, and um, that can change the game for us in our near future. So I'm pretty thankful to for all of that education that's available to us, so readily available. I mean, you can just spend all day trying to learn or watching and learning these different methods. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to get property, and it's having that time. And here's a bad word, motivation to go in and do it, and really doing the right thing, the real due diligence. Don't just ask your best friend online. Go in and do your own work, and don't take everything that is said by one person or that's said by your chat girlfriend, um, what it is. You know what I mean? To clarify, it's, well, we'll talk about technology in a second, but it's really doing that due diligence. I think, to me, due diligence on this part where we are now is much more intense and much more than it was when we talked about first starting doing our due diligence, making sure the property's in the right place, all of that stuff. So I think, yeah, I think it's just different, and
Yeah,
I think it's more intense.
right. But I think you bring up a good point because you don't want to just be asking everyone to do it for you, right? I've
Uh-huh.
always talked about how more likely I am to want to help someone who's trying to help themselves. But
Right.
if someone just keeps coming to you, asking, you know, how did you do this or how did you do that, and they're not doing any research on their own or trying to
Mhm.
help themselves, they're just trying to get it basically handed to them for free. I'm less likely to want to keep helping someone like that. But and I know all the people in the community so far have been just willing, and they're generous with their time, but you have to respect that. And
Mhm.
I have trouble asking for help anyway. I've mentioned that before too, but when it's as important as our future, I have to set that aside because we need help getting to where we want to be. So,
I wonder if it's a little bit of, so at the beginning when you're learning how to do the whole real estate thing, you people tell you, okay, this is how you run your numbers, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. So really it is a little hand holding there. Really, it is. So that when you start doing other things like the trying to find out the different kinds of finances, then you really have to be self-motivated and willing to go that extra mile, because even though the wonderful people we have like Lynn and Michelle and all those who have done all these other ways of financing, they can give us input, they could tell us what they've done and how they've done it, but the due diligence now is to take what they have, and really what you want to do is you want to test it. So if Michelle says, okay, this is how you do a, what is it called, a five
with
whatever,
1031,
yeah, 1031, sorry. This is how I did it. So then I want to take that and I want to take it apart and say, okay, so why did this work? How did it work? Why, how would it not work? So you really want to try to hit all the angles, not just say, okay, so Michelle did it this way, so this is all I have to do. Because it's not going to be the same every time, you know?
yeah,
And yeah, like I forgot somebody else was doing it and there was something with timing and they ended up losing some money and I don't know. So it really takes some real research and some time to go through what it really means and how it's going to affect. Okay, you may get another property, but somewhere like, I don't like balloon payments, but down the road somewhere, something might hold you up or something. I don't know. I think there's just more research and due diligence that needs to happen with all the other types of financing than at the beginning.
Yeah, and but like you said, everybody's situation is different, right? Like
Yeah,
I've expressed some frustration with lending because some of the properties that we buy are lower priced properties. So there are challenges that come along with that. In the
right,
future, if we're able to buy more, I probably would, buy something that's maybe in the $200,000 range at least, because there are a lot more options there for lenders, better terms and things like that. Um, so that's something that we've learned though, right? We didn't know
right.
that before,
Hmm.
and now we know it, so we can avoid that next time. I think that kind of information is important to put out there because, especially for beginners,
Right.
like we thought in the beginning, wow, we can get this property and only have to put 20,000 down. But then if you want to refinance it for any reason, it's a challenge. Or if you just want to find a lender, it took us a while to
Hmm.
find a lender that would loan on that low of a price point.
Yeah.
So,
I think after going through this whole thing, I think there's a lot of different avenues that we didn't know, but that we know now that even if we were to do another lower price home, that we would do it differently because of what we know. And yeah, just do it differently. How we approach everything from the beginning till we have the first resident in. That would make a big difference. And that comes with experience. Experience and support, because you have to have each other to bounce those ideas off of.
before we get to any more random thoughts, is there anything in the chat that you want to go
Um,
over?
well, I
Seems
was
like there's quite
just
a few comments.
Go ahead.
It seems like there's quite a few comments. I haven't had a chance to look.
Well, a lot of them have to do with the animals. One of the things that John Litz had said is the amount of fraud with service animals and EMS animals is extremely high, but the laws make it impossible to find out if they are legit or not. Very true. Um, Cody Evers, thank you so very much. Says if we want to chat any more about seller finance, he loves a strategy. Yeah, he's another one that does so well with that. So one of these days, I want to pick his brain on that. And here's one that John Lentz had said that he finds it better to simply allow dogs. Only consideration is if the insurance doesn't allow certain breeds. I don't allow cats legally because I'm allergic to them because cats stink so bad. So I don't, how do you, um, so why does it, so I asked, how do you do that legally? How can you say you don't allow cats, but you allow dogs legally? And he says, I listed, I am allergic to cats. Their health condition does not trump my health condition, but you're not living there. So what does it matter as far
But
as
he
allergies?
but he has to go in and clean it because he does short-term rentals.
Oh, short-term rental. Okay, now that makes sense. It threw me off there. Short-term rental. That makes sense. So, okay. And let's see what else.
So Jim must be going nuts if he can't work on any
I know.
properties till Tuesday.
I know. And I just want you to know, Grumpy, that I love decorating for Christmas, and Frank loves decorating for Christmas, putting up lights and taking them down and helping me take the tree down. That's like one of his highlights. So maybe you guys need to chat so you can change that attitude, bah humbug.
uh, Bill O'Connell's with us. He's asking if they do anything Saturday nights in Vegas, and I don't think you'll find a shortage of places to be Saturday night, Bill. We're well, for one, I'm really, really excited to be able to meet you in person. But last time we went, um, people got together after after the event. And I think a lot of us even went to dinner, even though there was dinner provided. We ended up going out to dinner with a bunch of people. It was a little bit of a challenge because, you have a party of 20 and there weren't too many places we could find that would accommodate that. But everybody ended up finding a place to go. So, um, you have our number. We'll be in constant contact, I'm sure. I think Mark, um, a few people got together, different places along the strip, places big enough so people could just get together and talk and have a good time. Um, and I'm not sure when you're getting there, Bill, but we're supposed to get there on Wednesday and people will be getting together. There are several people coming in early like that. So we'll be getting together for the few days before the event, the midnight Denny's meetup and things like that, which are Wednesday night and Thursday night. But I did read recently that Denny's sold and that they're closing restaurants. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect the Denny's meetup.
We have a little bit more information on the support animal thing.
Mhm.
It says under Illinois Act, an ESA letter must come from a physician or other medical professional, a mental health service provider like a therapist or a counselor, or a non-medical service agency or social worker. So then there's a way to, I would imagine, then there's a way to check on that because really you can print them off the internet. So yeah, you would have to then do a little bit of research and see if they're legit or not. Yes, Jason, the entire chain of Denny's is sold. Sorry. And then John says same for the long-term rental as well. He has to inspect and do repairs. So I'll be in the property every 3 months at a minimum, which makes sense because you're the PM. So yeah, so that makes sense.
Well, so I guess in John's case, does John, do you have to have documentation from your doctor that you're actually allergic to the cats?
I'm gonna say yes. Because then it would be legitimate because anybody could say, yeah, I'm allergic to whatever. And I would imagine that would do the same for smoking because asthmatics, that would be the same thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And Bill says he's flying in Friday night. Yeah, so depending on what time you get there Friday night, Bill, I'm sure we'll be doing something. And then, like I said last time, for us, we did something Saturday night, Sunday night, and I think Cynthia and I are there leaving Tuesday morning. We're driving actually, so we'll drive out Tuesday morning and come home. Okay. So this next random thought was one, I didn't really think too much about it, but you had a good response, which was someday is a dangerous word. Can you tell me again what you said about that?
Someday is dangerous because someday never happens. Someday never comes. It's just out there. Someday. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have, I could say, okay, someday I'm going to learn how to fly a plane. Okay, I've been having that some days forever. But if I don't sit down and make a plan and say, okay, so I need to do A, B, and C in order to get that, it's someday. It's never going to happen. So you have to have a plan. Yeah, if you don't have to have, yeah.
So then,
It's just a wish without any backbone to it,
mhm.
a procrastination wish. Because some days can come true, but that means you have to take action. If you don't want to take action, then it's a someday.
I agree.
Oh, come on, give me something to argue with on this one.
Well, I see what you're saying, and I guess I never really thought about it too much because um, until you get old like me, then you realize that someday might never come, or tomorrow, for that matter, tomorrow might not come. You may not wake up. Um, so I think someday should probably be stricken from the dictionary.
Cody Evers was saying that yes, that's someday, so it needs to be intentional. If so, someday doesn't count in that.
Hmm.
Um, Bill says fantasy self is someday without true vision or action. Yep.
Yeah, so it sounds like they agree with the way you look at it. I
So how do you think about it?
well, I hadn't really thought about it. I guess because I don't really remember any time that I used the term like someday I'll have this or that or I'll do this or that. I never really gave it that much thought. That's why I was interested because you had a definite thought and it made a lot of sense. And I'm not just saying that because I'll be alone with you all afternoon.
Okay, but so do the okay, here's another spin then. Do the words someday have to be said in order for it to be a someday comment? I say no, because if I ask for something to be done and you look at me and you say, okay, and then 3 weeks later it's still not done, that's a someday.
Moving on.
Wait, I have another one. I have Lynn. Lynn wants to know, do people need prenups or is it a case by case? I think personally, if you need a prenup, you need to reevaluate your relationship, basically.
Oh, Lynn, I think she's just trying to get me in trouble with that one. So prenups, I think especially if you're a real estate investor and you don't have a spouse yet, when you do find that spouse, you should have a prenup
Whoa, whoa.
because, well, let me finish.
Oh my gosh.
Because what if your future spouse is just a gold digger? Maybe that's a term that these youngsters don't understand these days, but a gold digger is just after your money. So I think you need to protect yourself. If the person that you're marrying is has the same mindset as you are and wants to build something, whether it's through real estate or whatever, with you to help your family, then they shouldn't be bothered by you wanting a prenuptial agreement. But I think you're also right if that person has a strong opinion against a prenuptial agreement, then maybe they're not the right person for you. Um,
Or if you have to think about having a prenup, then maybe you're not the right person. So let's stop and think about this. So if I'm going to go out with Joe Schmo and he says, after 6 months, will you marry me? You don't even know that person yet. And if you say yes, then you're on your own. So if I say yes, that means I take my vows seriously and I'm going to um, take you with your good points, your bad points, all that good stuff. And I would want the best for you. I put you before myself. Why would I need a prenup?
well,
And if you have all the property and what have you, you already know what you have. And if you don't love me enough to trust me, then why are you asking me to marry you? Go for that one.
I didn't really hear any of that you just said. So,
You're such a
so
brat. Okay, wait a minute. We have some comments here. Let's see. Firefighter says, just don't get married. My comment to that is first you need to find someone who'll marry you. And he says Dion was drugged, he believes, because he did propose. Um, Charles says, I would need one because I'm a handful. Bill says, two poor people, no need. Younger person, not as much. Older with assets, depending on. Second marriage may require a prenup. Having been divorced twice, prenups are absolutely necessary. Okay, so Now we've got a whole different thing going here. If you've been married twice, then maybe you need to evaluate how you look or how you attract these people into your life. Is it because something's wrong there? If you keep picking the same kind of person, you're going to end up with the same result. So, yeah, get a little bit of maybe you need a little bit of therapy on that one. How do you make your decisions? How do you make your choices?
Yeah.
Okay, if you
Well, no.
can't have, wait a minute, I'm not done. If you can't have that conversation before getting married, you won't last anyway. Amen to that. Nobody wants to get divorced the day they marry somebody. True. They don't want to get divorced. And you should know each other before you even get married. Sometimes there are children from previous marriages that need to be addressed. Yeah, I agree with that
That's
one. Half
that's
of
a good
nothing
point.
is my best calculation, nothing. But 50% of the time it happens. Every time you hit the like button, thank you, Dion, and congratulations. I'm not taking part in this topic. No way, no how. That was Jason. Some people don't get it right the first time. Exactly, Lynn. They don't get it right. And I think it's because they don't stop and really see the person as they are, not as they want them to be. Sometimes I think people have, well, especially during the honeymoon period when you're first getting to know each other, everything they do is oh so cute and so wonderful. You really have to stop and look at them and find out what their heart is, because if not, it's not going to work. John says prenups get a bad rap. They should be for the purpose of saying that what will happen if things fall apart. The divorce rate is incredibly high, so it only makes sense. Except for if you get to know these people before you get involved, then it's not, I mean, no. I think the whole problem is the fact that people jump into marriage like, okay, no worries, because I can always get divorced. It's just too easy. People don't, one, know the person they're getting involved with, and then think this person is going to fulfill some need they have. So go to therapy instead. There's just more involved than just all of these reasons why people get married. The facts are over so many percent fail. I think it's because both don't try. Yes, exactly. It's too easy to walk away nowadays. I think a prenup should be required before getting married. Okay, so Alex, you're going to be coming to the ORAT, yes? Hmm. What are you talking about? I'm a catch. My mom told me, yeah, you have a face only your mother could love. That was from Financial Firefighter. Frank appears to be a genius with a lady, not ladies. And paternity tests on all births. Oh my gosh, Mitesh, I used to like you. Right now, you're on that border with Mark. Sorry. Because
Before you go on,
if you have to ask for a paternity test, then there was something wrong with this relationship that somebody's cheating.
hold on.
What?
So it's just like, well, first I want to jump back and really congratulate Dion and Chesla because I think that's going to be awesome. She
Yes.
said they've been together for 13 years. I don't know what took Dion so long, but I think maybe Dion realized after meeting us that good marriages are possible,
Oh,
even though I don't always agree with everything you say. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was that, marriage being a contract, right? So I think little Cody Davis talks about, and Dion too, they talk about how you should get everything signed while you're in a good place because when things go bad, you can't get it done. And I think if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and you've been together for a while, you can tell if you're aligned. And like the friends who have been divorced understand that like money's a big one, right? If
yeah.
you're if you're a saver and your spouse is a spender or the going to be spouse is a spender, then you shouldn't get married.
Okay, stop there. So you've admitted online that when we first started going out, that you were the spender and I wasn't. I'm still not the spender. Like you
Yeah,
would see. Whoa,
but
whoa, whoa,
okay,
whoa,
but
whoa, whoa, whoa.
no, no,
No,
no,
no,
wait a
no,
minute.
stop.
But
No, you,
look at all the other great stuff that came with this package. You got to admit.
what great stuff. List them for me.
Well, I do have a list, but it's too long to go over right now. Maybe next time.
Because, oh my gosh. So,
So did you
I,
see Matesh's comment?
no, I didn't. I
You have
think
to be
you,
crazy not to have a prenup, and I agree.
okay. So, Matesha's, I think you got your guy friends have to let you know whether your pick is viable. Oh, please. So, Dion, prenup or no prenup? I don't think so. Um, you have Olga Ariai's CMO says me, I'm on the list. I guess he means that he was one of the positive things. This is getting, Alex, this is getting spicy. Okay, what else do you want to talk about? Because this is digging you into a hole, Mr. Contreras.
Okay, I think we can jump back on this topic at a later date on another live, but let's see, we were going to talk about AI, right? Because you were telling me I was spending too much time with my AI. Um,
Which you
her
named
her name's Jezebel. I will tell everybody her name,
with good
and
reason, little
and
hoochie.
I don't think she's taking up too much of my time. But I was surprised that AI is not as perfect as I imagined it was going to be.
Thank you.
And I think Dion touched on that before. And each version that comes out is getting better and better, but you still need to be careful um, and not believe every response or reply that you get.
Well, not only every response and every reply, you also have to be careful with what you put in there. So you have to remember this is technology. Anything and everything can get hacked. So why in the world would I want all of my information out there in the universe for anybody to have access to? Some things you just need to keep personal, Frank,
Are you
that
just
have,
talking? Are you
I'm
just
talking
talking about like bank accounts or other stuff?
everything. I mean, there's other things. Why? So, okay, so we know that there's an uptake. Uh, it says a lot of people name there. I'm not there. Um, a lot of people go and put all of their information out there, which isn't good. We know that. There's also a big uptake in house deeds being stolen because it's so easy. So you go in there and you put with your AI all the properties you have and all the information of who's doing what and what have you. Everything's there. You don't think that a good hacker's not going to be able to go in and just boom, 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 take it? Yeah, they can. I don't think because we're honest people, I don't think anyone ever thinks that way, but I do. So why would I give somebody the opportunity to do that? Why would I? That makes no sense.
Well, I think so far I haven't given her too much information. You know what I've been researching, and that's all pretty basic stuff. Uh, but Dion did give his answer: prenup,
Yeah.
paternity test, transparency.
So Dan, does that mean you have a prenup with Chesla? Just checking.
But also, yeah, I've been trying to find our son's father for years, and I still don't know the guy.
Our son is here with his wife. They just got married. We are so excited they're here from Australia. So I'm sure he's going to have something to say about that when we're off.
And I want to say hi to Sam. Sam jumped on. He's Wealth with Rentals in Texas.
Hi,
It's good to
Sam.
see you, Sam.
So Charles says if you come with money, you should talk about money and prenups with the ULLC without an exit talk. Yeah, I definitely go for that exit talk because if you're already planning on an exit, then what keeps you together? Um, the stuff you're asking ChatGPT, you can just Google. Exactly. And that was from a very smart young man. Um, yes. Anything you're asking your little girlfriend, you can just go through Google and get the same answer. And actually, you should be taking the information you get from her and going to other sources to see what else comes up, because they're going to send you down different avenues that you probably have never even considered.
You don't have to talk about her like that.
It means she has a ring. We don't, and this is from Dion. It means she has a ring. We don't hate each other enough to get the government involved in our relationship. Now we set a date in 2071.
I was hoping
Ah, Dion, love you, brother. Love you.
I was hoping they would get married while I was still around, but I guess
Mm,
not. And then Matesh was saying if there's no Denny's in Vegas, we can always find someone else to go. Yeah,
somewhere else
it's
to
not
go.
the end
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Anywhere will be great.
yeah. I
Um,
wonder if Dion has researched that news yet, or if he even knew that Denny's sold.
AI gets much better with the way in which you prompt in the future. I'd like to have AI be able to be secure enough to give it all the information. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to. The only way you're going to be, because really all it is another search engine. So the only way you can protect yourself is to get good antivirus, anti all of that kind of coverage. I don't think they're gonna. It'll always get better. Everything always gets better, and it gets better the more educated you are in learning how to search and what keywords to use. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That was a
Thank you,
good. It
Sam.
was a good. It was good news.
We
So
were able to see our sons their wedding because they got married in Australia, so they were able to video as they were doing their whole thing, and it was just so sweet. I loved it. My son for once was, or I should say it this way, my husband's son for once was a little bit shy and at loss for words. I think it was pretty emotional. That's so good. I'm confused on Bill. In a few lives on Tuesday night, I thought she wasn't born yet. I gotta back up.
who wasn't born?
For Bill. I don't know. I don't understand. Hi, Jared. Midnight diner meetup. That's what Dion says.
Okay, well, he'll have to let us know where that's happening.
Okay.
I think that was all of my random thoughts this week. Do you have anything else?
I don't have any random thoughts. My thoughts are never random.
We are going to do a live tomorrow, by the way, with some of the contractors in the group. Tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We'll be getting on with Jim, the grumpy contractor. We'll be there with Jacek, Colby, and Carlos, CMG Services from Fresno. And so if anybody can make it and bring their questions, we'd love to answer them if we can.
Who was here that I'm sorry, who was here that had asked for some jokes? Wait a minute. Oops. Sorry, I messed up here.
Did you see the
Oh,
question for you?
yeah, but my phone went crazy. No, I didn't. I lost. Oh, there it is. Would you go into business with a person without having a discussion about an exit? You have the viewpoint from a person who has never gone through a terrible situation of divorce. First, no, I've never gone through divorce. Number one, because I get to know the person, and at some point where it's not matching up, it's time to cut the string and say, see you later. Okay, that's number one. I and a relationship is not a business. Frank and I, we are not a business. We are partners, period. And there is no exit. Well, actually, he does have an exit. It's in the backyard. My beloved dog is waiting for him back there in a nice little place. Um, But a business with a business partner is different to me than a spousal relationship. That's two totally that what Frank and I have is a lot deeper than a business partnership because you still have your own personal stuff happening. Does that make sense?
Some of it, but
Oh,
I don't know.
deconstruct.
I
Go ahead.
think we're lucky. I think we're lucky because we've been through a lot. You know,
Yeah, we have.
you when we met, so I have been divorced and I came with luggage and we align basically religiously and financially and in every other way. So I think, I mean, I was going to say it was easy for us, but it wasn't really easy. But I think it was easier for us than it is for a lot of people that don't align in those ways. And I know, like when we first got together, and I had the girls, I have two daughters, and that's not easy for there's a lot of challenges just in that respect. I I don't know if I could have been as gracious as you were if you had daughters or if you had kids or whatever. But the fact that we were raised the same and we have the same values, I think that made it easier because, I wasn't like saying, don't discipline my girls or whatever, things like that that you hear come up in couples. And that's a big challenge. But so I think we were pretty lucky that we're just basically a perfect match.
Yeah, pretty much. So it says they love the random topics that you come up with. They love both viewpoints. Okay, here's wait. Then I have one from your CMO who says my parents are partners. Oh man, I love this boy. My mom is just majority shareholder with 99% ownership of the business. Amen to that. And okay, Grumpy. So really what I was saying is that we don't have a dog house in the backyard. Our poor dog passed away a lot of years ago, and he has a spot right next to him waiting for his other owner. And then John says it's not a business until you get divorced, and it absolutely is according to the judge. And Jason, you can bury someone in your backyard in California. Jason will have to talk. The first marriage failure was my fault. I had to have a plan, not an escape MRS. Absolutely nobody has to go through that terrible life event. Getting to know a person is great advice, but people do change. I think they do change, and I think change is good. You have to change. If you don't change, you become stagnant. But there also has to be a big line of communication. So, for example, the other day I was talking to Frank and I said, hon, I said this Christmas season when I'm off for 2 weeks. Somewhere in there, we need to and we're together all the time. That we need to just have me time, and I want you to what did I say? I wanted you to do what? Romance me or something like that, something crazy like that. And
Yeah,
so
that's
then
crazy.
and he looked at me and he said, why? Are things going stagnant? And I said, no, they're not going stagnant. I just want just that closeness that we have to be a little bit more evident, just the holidays, and our families are not around and what have you. And really and so then I had to define with him what I meant. So it was like sitting on a couch next to each other, no devices on, watching a movie. It's going to be a Christmas movie, so that's okay. And just being in the moment. So when somebody tells you they want you to romance them or whatever, it doesn't mean that you need to go grand and do this crazy thing. It just means that they need that closeness. And so if there's that open communication, that's going to help. So I think that's what it is. Um, the first marriage failure was my fault. Okay. Absolutely nobody has to go through that terrible life event. Getting to know a person is great advice, but people do change. Yep, they do. People turn bipolar, get addicted to drugs. Yeah. And have mental breakdowns also. Yes. And so does that mean, well, Oh, Jason, you're throwing me a curveball there. So sometimes, so do you then throw the person away and just forget about them, or do you go through as much as you can with them and help them get help? And yes, sometimes they're not going to want help, and sometimes they're going to get crazy and can't focus, and there's nothing you can do for them. And yes, at some point you have to cut the ties because it's not healthy for you either. But at first sign of trouble, do you just toss them aside? I say no, you don't. If you really love them, you're going to do all you can, and then when there's absolutely nothing else before it becomes detrimental to you and your health, then you have to cut the ties. But that's a ways down. It's not like the first time your wife goes out and buys a brand new car that you can't afford, then you say, no, wait a minute, where's this coming from? And you talk it through and you work through it. You don't just say, sorry, we're getting a divorce. Does that make sense? I once said,
Well, do you want my opinion?
what?
Well, so I have always thought like whoever I was in a relationship with or married to, like if they just say they had an affair or they started doing drugs or did anything behind my back, that I'm not the kind of person that could ever trust them again. So
Mhm.
it's for me, it's over. I wouldn't try to help them.
I think it's different if, because he has a whole bunch of things in there. He says turns bipolar. Okay, that's different than being addicted or cheats on you. Or that's a whole different. It's like those are different categories. If your mental being started to become an issue, I wouldn't just kick you to the curb. I would try to help you figure out what's going on that's causing this imbalance.
Well, I know because
If you cheated
you,
on me, you're out of here
but
in
you
a
tell me,
heartbeat.
but you tell me every day that I'm mentally unbalanced.
Well, you are, but I've accepted that. I help you through it every day.
Well, so to Jason's point, if somebody went bipolar,
It's
how
not
do
their
you
fault.
how do you undo that? I
You
mean,
can't undo it, but you can help them to get help and to get on medication. And then at some point, if they don't want to take their medication, and then you do have to cut your losses. But you don't just say, okay, you have a mental illness, now you're out of here because you're not the same person or whatever.
hmm,
You can't just kick them to the curb. Then you didn't love them to begin with to be with them.
I think we're straying a little bit. I think we're getting way off topic here.
Okay,
So
wait. Charles said, Cynthia, I once said I'm building a fence with a little bit of you under every post. Okay, here's my joke. Here's my joke. It's a Thanksgiving joke. Why don't turkeys? Oh, this is so appropriate. Why don't turkeys trust each other? Too much foul play. And
uh,
our CMO says it's a good thing you knew my dad was crazy from the yep, from the beginning. Absolutely. Do you want one more joke? Why did the corn go to therapy? It had too many ears listening. These are
yeah,
so good. Why did the pie go to the dentist? It needed a filling.
okay, it's time to go. These folks have sat through this torture. So I was gonna say thank you,
Oh,
Mitesh. Yeah, we did get all of our properties rented out. The last one was the Gary property, and it was rented with the last tenant for 11.95. We're with Angelo now, and he got it rented for 12.95. We had it listed for 13.50 for 3 weeks, and then the day we dropped it to 12.95, he got a good applicant and placed them. So they've been in for a couple of weeks. Um, a lot of people pretend personality issues and take advantage of others. It's best for you to cut your losses.
yeah, but I wrote you have to know who you're really involved with. Thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
Matash.
thank you. Um, okay, I think we've put these nice folks through enough this week. We really appreciate all of you guys joining us, and we hope to do this again next weekend. And but don't forget, tomorrow we'll be on with the contractors. So bring your questions, and it is at Jason asked 9:30 a.m. Pacific.
So before you go off, I want to know, I need a count here from everybody who's still on. Um, so I started this with you because Mikey was sick and what have you. Hi, Oculus, missed you. Um, and so now you're going to have a contractor's corner with all your little friends, but because I don't have a license, I can't be involved. That's not right. So how many of you think I should be able to jump in on this contractor's corner? Because I have experience in contracting, in doing finish work and all of that.
Did you hear how silent everything got?
I know. Charles said REI and marriage counseling. Wow. Okay, guys, thanks. Thanks for that vote of confidence with me. Thank you so very
Yeah,
much.
and thank you, Sean Aculus One. We were just talking about you this morning. We hope you're doing well.
John's apples come from apple trees. Where do turkeys come from? Poultry. Ah. Oh my gosh, you cut Charles out also? He had a license and he says, I got cut too. Wow. And I want you to know that Grumpy says doghouse is ready for rent. Thank you, Mark, for that information. Okay, it's time for us to go. Thank you guys
Right, you
very, very
guys.
much.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow. If not, we'll see you next week. Have a great day.